Hey everyone, this is Matt Hendricks with the Sharpening Guide, and today I'm going to show you how you can sharpen your knife at home using just a couple of inexpensive water stones. I have another video showing you how to sharpen a knife with the stones more like I usually use, but today I'm just going to use, this is a King 1000 grit stone, and this is a King Ice Bear 6000 grit stone. And I believe that you can get both of these stones. I think each one costs somewhere around $30, which is pretty cheap, especially considering what a lot of other stones cost. And I think you can even get these as a combination stone, and then you could spend even less, although having separate stones is nice. So I'm not claiming these are, like I said, the best stones out there or anything like that, but I just want to show you how even using inexpensive stones like this, how you can still sharpen your knife and get really good edges. So both of these are soaking stones. The 6000 grit one actually could go either way. You could use it as a splash and go, but it does a little bit better if you soak it. And so anyway, I'm going to use this knife. This is just a small Henkel Sentoku, and as you can see, it is dull. Even with a sawing action, it won't really cut. Kind of tears the paper there where it cut along the rough edge. If there's not a rough edge on the paper, it really doesn't do anything to it. So anyway, like I said before, most Western knives, including this one, are taper ground, so they're thicker at the spine and then they get thinner as they go down towards the edge. And so if we were to just sharpen the edge of the knife, we would get back up into thicker steel each time we sharpened it, and the knife would become fat behind the edge and it'd be hard to push through food. So the first thing we're going to do is lay the knife flat on the stone and just raise the edge slightly. And we're going to just at a very thin angle, thin out the blade a little bit above the cutting edge, so that then when we do sharpen the cutting edge, the knife is still nice and thin behind it. So just going to lay the blade like that, push down where I want to remove steel with this hand, because if you don't have enough pressure on the stone, it's not going to cut very well. And so my right wrist and arm are locked at this angle, and the movement is basically from my shoulder. And your goal with thinning is basically to get the knife thin enough to where your actual edge bevel, which we'll sharpen in a minute, is really very narrow. You don't need it to extend up the blade much. You really just want it to look almost like a micro bevel along the edge. And now we'll start thinning on the other side. On a Western knife like this, you want to do about 50% on each side. And you don't have to count or anything, but just look at the knife and make sure you're keeping everything centered and everything looks even on both sides of the blade. Now, like I showed in my other video where I showed you how to sharpen a knife, obviously this thinning and all would be sped up if you used a rough stone. But you can do it all just with two stones, just a medium grit stone like this, and then a finishing stone like the 6000 grit stone I'm going to be using. And a medium stone is generally anywhere between like 800 and 2000 Japanese grit, and a finishing stone would be like 4000 or up. Some people say 3000 or up. So I've thinned the knife sufficiently. And this knife I had sharpened previously, so even though it was dull, it was already fairly thin because I had already done this another time. So now I'm going to sharpen the actual edge bevel, can raise it up a little bit. Again, this is just a kitchen knife. You're just cutting fruits, vegetables, meat, stuff like that. You don't need a super high angle. Just a nice low angle will work well. And so right now the edge is all rounded over. And so basically what I need to do is, because the edge is rounded over, I need to remove material on each side until the edge becomes triangular again. And when I remove material on one side, I know I'm going to hit the apex when I can feel what's called a burr or a wire edge, which is going to be a little flap of metal sticking on the other side of the blade that I ground. So for instance, if I'm sharpening the edge on this side, to check and see if I've gotten down to the apex of the edge yet, I can feel on this side, and I can feel if there's a little wire edge or burr sticking up. And there is, all except for the very tip. Now, if I feel on this side, I won't feel it at all because I've been grinding on this side. So right now, this side is flat and there's a burr, except on the tip, so I can feel it if I run my hand like that. But the other side is still rounded, so I'm still going to have to go through and sharpen the other side so I can feel the burr on the other side too. So we'll make sure I get the tip there. Now I've got to burr the full length of the blade. So now I'll come through and do this side. And I've got to burr the full length of the blade. So now that I have the burr, the full length of the blade on both sides, I know that my edge is triangular again. So now it's just a matter of polishing each side and then removing the burr, and that will leave me with a sharp edge. So before I move to the finishing stone, I'm going to start refining the edge just by doing some edge trailing strokes, meaning I'm moving away from the edge instead of into it. And we'll just do a few on each side of the blade here. And this is again at the angle that the actual cutting edge is at, not the thinning angle. And this will just help to refine the edge, make the apex of the edge a little bit thinner, and also it will help get the burr to be removed. So that's all we need to do on the medium stone there. So we'll take our fine stone here, and I can just polish up where I was thinning a little bit like this. So I'm not hitting the edge at this point, I'm just at the thinning angle. And you wouldn't have to polish up where you thinned. It'll just make your knife look a little bit nicer. Now when I sharpen knives for other people professionally, I usually do all the thinning and polishing on other equipment in my shop, and so it looks a lot more like the finish that may have come on your knife in the first place. But this will still leave you a nice looking polished finished where you thinned, if you do it right. All right, and that's good enough for polishing behind the edge there. So now, on the actual edge, I'm only going to use edge trailing strokes on my finishing stone. And you can go slower than this if you need to, because technique is more important than speed. So after a bunch of those, rinse the blade off. I'm just going to lightly cut through a piece of wood or soft plastic like this, and that just helps fold the burr over and get it ready to be cut off by the water stone next time. You strap on it like this. So I'll do a few more of these and do this again. I'm just going to repeat this process a few times until I can't feel any wire edge on the blade. And you're doing this at the exact same angle you sharpened at. All right, now so I'll check the knife. I can't feel a burr on either side. Feels nice and smooth. If I look at it under my light, I can't see a burr at all. So at this point, I can dry the knife off here. And if you wanted to, you could lay a little piece of newspaper over your stone and strap on that, or you could strap on leather. Be careful not to cut your towel when you dry your knife off. In theory, you shouldn't really have to strap your blade if you remove the burr properly, but strapping your blade like that certainly wouldn't hurt. If you do strap on leather, just make sure you use a smooth, hard-backed leather surface, and without any compound on it, because you don't want to round your edge over. So anyway, so at this point, if we go back here, the knife should be able to easily slice paper like that. We'll see it should be able to bite into the paper like that. So not too big a deal. And so like I said, even using a couple of really inexpensive water stones like that, you can get an edge that would easily cut, you know, anything you want in your kitchen, and cut tomatoes, cut the skin of an onion. For that matter, this knife would pretty easily shave hair like that. So really, a couple inexpensive stones like that is all you need if you know what you're doing and you have good technique. So thanks for watching.